Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zach Congonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
The podcast timeline is different to real-world time. As in,
time.
Yeah, we're actually speaking in the future now. So,
Yes.
people listening are listening to in the future, and it makes sense to them. Whereas
They're
if
listening to us in the past from the future.
exactly.
You know what, actually? I reckon this is a great place to start us off. Because you know what freaks me the fuck out? How in God's name do they put voices into, like, laser beams, send that to space, and then send that to your Spotify? Like, what the fuck?
The laser beams.
Well, it's pretty fast.
Well,
from
like,
what
they're turning this into different information to then send it different places.
It's true. Technology is amazing.
Science hour with Coach Zach.
Fuck, I stay up at night thinking about that sometimes.
Dr.
Like,
Carl
everything's just
Dr.
laser
Carl.
beams.
That'd be a good segment.
Fuck, I'd love to get Dr. Carl in here. Get him to talk about RPE.
Yeah. He's never really lifted anything heavy in his life. But that's okay. He's probably got some good insights.
I mean, I feel like he just knows it. I think you underestimate how much he would know. Because sometimes I watch it and I'm like, there's no way he knows this. Like,
Yeah,
I'll listen to it.
and then he'll pull it
And
out.
then he just fucking bangs on. And I'm just
He's
like,
a wealth of knowledge.
man, imagine like his whole life is dedicated to just knowing everything. So like, how much time does he just go like, goes to the library, goes, I don't know much about this book, and then just fucking reads it and just goes like, one day a radio segment will come up and somebody will call in with this question and I will know it.
Yeah. Just a bunch of useless facts strung together to form his intelligence.
It's just, how does he pick his next topic? What is he going to learn next?
ChatGPT probably asked him.
Who's
ChatGPT.
Dr. Carl?
Are you serious?
who's Dr. Carl?
What's his name? Carl.
I don't know, but he's the guy with the funny shirts, answers scientist dude.
On Triple J.
Goes on Triple J, answers questions. Well, used to. I don't think he does. I don't know if
I think he still does it.
Is he?
Well, there's
He
your
actually
first
still
problem.
does.
Triple J.
Yeah. ABC. He's like all in that network. He's been around for a
lots
while.
of things, Zach.
Carl.
Right?
Yeah,
Can't
right.
remember his. It's not Stefano.
I'm definitely not Steffo. Jesus Christ. Definitely not Steffo. Steffo, I think, would be the opposite. He'd just, somebody
he
would
don't
ask
know
a
anything.
question. He'd
Go
go, I don't know,
next.
fucking.
On to the next one. Ask the producers.
Yeah, exactly. It's on my teleprompter. Don't care.
Fucking hell.
Sorry, Carl.
All right.
I
So
do
Dr.
love you,
Carl?
Carl, if you
Yeah.
listen. Both the Carls.
Open,
Love them.
open invitation to be on the podcast.
Yeah, give us a call.
All right, Zach, you have some interesting things to tell us from what I understand?
I saw a video, and it was about a frog. And apparently there's this frog that once it has its eggs fertilized, it shoots them out. Then the male frog scoops them up
Yeah.
and then smears them on their back. And then skin grows over the eggs. Then the baby frogs leave via the back of the mother
What?
Okay.
after the skin's grown over them. So imagine...
So the mum shoots it off. The dad one slimes over it or whatever you said, and then the mum comes back up, picks them back up on the back.
No. So the dad slimes it onto their back. Like imagine a bricky putting bricks on top of frogs. But instead of bricks, it's baby frogs.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah.
Tap it
Yeah,
next.
when you
for
said
us.
shoot, that's what ruined it for me, because I was thinking like proper shoot, like shoot it onto the ground or some shit.
I mean, I'm sure there's some velocity when the eggs come out, but not that much.
Yeah, not as fast as what I was thinking.
No, like a rail gun.
Yeah, I was thinking proper bang, like, you know.
If they were
shoots it
going that
into-
quick, we'd probably have a frog problem. You know, if they're repopulating that quickly, that efficiently.
They do. They're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Can't turn
Fuck, we had heaps in my backyard when we're getting the deck built. There's a puddle and there was a drainage problem, and there was just still water that was sitting there. And then next minute, I swear it wasn't there for long. It could have been longer. But then all of a sudden I had all these baby toads that were like maybe a centimeter long, probably less, probably like even like a beetle size, just fucking hopping around. You walk around the garden, it looked like the grass was moving because it would just be like shh, and there's like hundreds of these little toads fucking off. And then I thought, well, I could deal with this, or I could hope to God that they find their way into other people's yards and don't bother me when they're bigger. And so I went with that option. Didn't find one. So they did. They fucked off and annoyed other people.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
Do any of your neighbors have a pool?
Yeah.
Then
But they
they're
have to
most
go.
likely there.
It's a pond now. It's not a pool.
Yeah, they had to go up the hill for that. So I don't know if. I mean, they're pretty adaptive creatures, so they probably know how to go up hills.
I think so. They look at the bottom of yours though and go, you know what? Nah, maybe we'll go somewhere else. They got the big lake down the bottom. Maybe they went to the lake.
They couldn't down the hill.
Down is
Big
more
journey.
efficient.
Big journey down there.
Yep.
Anyway, enough frog talk.
Enough frogs.
All right,
We'll come back to frog talk next week.
Frogcast.
Yeah, frogcast.
Fucking hell.
So today,
Dedicated to our Lord and Savior Mark Rippetoe.
yeah, it's
Well said.
been watching a lot of Rip videos. Love a Rip video. Probably not for the reason that he intends me to love his videos, but I find them hilarious. I find his takes hilarious. And he had one recently, and he has covered RPE extensively in the past, but he had one recently. What was the actual title of it? Got it?
Sets of 5.
No, we're not doing that one. That's a good one too. We'll get to that.
Something as simple as RPE, why does it suck? Something like that. Or why is it bad? Or why...
Subjectivity is garbage or something.
Something like that.
It's garbage.
We don't have it yet.
Absolute flaming garbage from the Rip's mind itself. And the video is only a few minutes long, so go and watch it if you want. The comment section is also fantastic if you want to have a good time. But Zach, I have written and delivered to you a little summary of the video and I know you do a good deep Texan voice, which Rip is
A good Rip
strong.
accent.
He's known for. Well, it's good in my mind. I don't know if Texans would like it. It's probably a little bit off, but I'm going for it. So, like, if you want to just give us the gist of his video, and then we will give our opinion on what he said and of RPE in general.
Yes, I will. I will read what Will has written verbatim. let me just calibrate the voice. Sets of 5. Don't take my guns. Alrighty. So box squat. I can do them almost to depth for around sets of 5. I got basically no knee left, but when I come off the box, I can't hold my position, even though it feels pretty good. So what I'm looking at and what I'm feeling is not the same thing. So therefore, because there's a discrepancy, RPE is complete bullshit, and your perceptions are lying to you.
Yeah,
Bullshit.
Well done.
There's a couple of twinges in the voice there. I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
hard
You
to
sounded more like.
maintain. It's hard to maintain.
Yeah. There was a couple moments in there that you were the old guy from Family Guy.
Who? The pedophile.
Yeah.
Hey Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, there was a couple of those moments in there, but I'll give it to you. Pretty Texan. You also sounded quite angry, which is spot on for Rip. That's a good question, actually. Does Rip actually have moments in his life where he's happy, or is he just constantly pissed off at it?
I think the word's curmudgeon-y.
Big word. What is it?
Big word, yeah.
Like generally displeased old man. Like he's a curmudgeon-y old man.
Okay. Yeah.
Like they kind of grumble and drink really strong coffee. Like
Yeah.
Broderick.
Yes.
Broderick is
Angry.
curmudgeon-y.
It's a
Yeah.
good descriptive word.
Yeah,
for him.
actually.
Yep.
Broderick, I would. Broderick would hate me saying it, but yeah, I can see the.
Let's do our best not to offend Broderick. Right
Broderick's an absolute champion.
I feel like he'd agree.
probably.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the whole video was essentially along the lines of saying, real quick roundup was saying that he does box squats, apparently, puts them in the program, his knee's fucked. And when he does them, he has a technique fault, a bit of breakdown in his said box squat. And when he watches the video, when he's doing them, he feels like they're pretty good holding position. When he watches the video back of that set, notices, hey, there's a bit of breakdown in that set. So therefore, perception and like how we feel is a complete bullshit, complete just garbage. Throw it in the bin.
Chuck it out. Yeah.
But is he saying the only objective way to view a lift is through the video, and you must trust the video 100% of the time?
You can't trust yourself as a human. Like
So
if you can think for yourself at all, you're a fucking idiot. You
watch the video.
You should completely rely on objective data and never be subjective about anything at all ever. Is it just I got?
Yeah. It's obviously a mix of both that we're looking for here. Like whenever you hear an extreme opinion like that, you're like, Yeah, but maybe the answer is probably a little bit more biased to the middle.
Definitely not. No way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're absolutely throwing him under the bus a little bit here, but I feel like he does it the same. He does it for the same reason in order to really lead into his biases or whatever. So whatever. But that video was inspiration for today's topic, which is just us, our general opinion of auto-regulation, in particular RPE. I don't really understand why he's using RPE for technique. That is not something that it makes sense to me at all. I don't think I've ever heard someone judge their technique on a scale. But we obviously use it more for intensity, for understanding like proximity to failure. So, and I think it's a really powerful tool. And I think the subjectivity of it is not bullshit. And there's something that's actually really fucking important.
Something useful. Yeah.
Rip
Aside.
Rip aside. I reckon the easiest place to start for us is if there is actually an agreed upon definition of RPE, like between coaches, because I wholeheartedly believe that there is not. I don't think if you asked 10 coaches, they would give you a relatively similar answer on what it is. Everyone would have like their own little bit of flair to it. The same words, auto-regulation and intensity would come up, but what it actually means and what each coach's RPE definition is, I think, is completely different.
And for us, I think over the years, my opinion's changed on what it is. Like, it used to be very, stick to your scale. And, obviously you have the RIR link to it in Mike Teixeira's model, where it's like, an RP7 is 3 reps in reserve and so on and so forth, that whole scale, which I think is a really good definition and brings a little bit more clarity to it. But these days...
It's just RIR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But then it kind of got a bit murky when I would start working with really strong people when they're doing like really heavy weights in particular, like really heavy singles or something. And I'll go like, I want you to hit a single at 7. And I don't know whether they could or could not, but a lot of the time, like, it'd be a smooth, crisp, nice looking single, maybe an opener, maybe a last warm up somewhere in between there. And I don't know whether they could really do 3 more reps with it because it's so fucking heavy and they're so advanced, like it's a lot of weight. And it's just kind of like, that's when I was like, maybe RPE and RR should be separated a little bit at that end. And then, then it started to, as I went into with Luke Lehman a little bit, being a little bit more of a descriptor, where I was like, I want this to be a challenging set that's still technically pretty spot on, where you feel like you can hold technique, not when you watch the video back, but when you feel like it's pretty sound, like you can hold everything. Everybody can feel like when they're doing a complete shithouse rep, and maybe it's not grindy, or I don't know. I can in a way kind of describe it roughly as being this. A lot harder to coach that way because writing every single set with a full-on description is time consuming, but again, it's just like added a little bit of difference to the RP meaning, I guess, for me.
So how has that changed you with programming when it comes to, maybe we're talking really strong athletes, we're talking top end percentages and stuff like that? What are the differences that you've done versus what you've done in the past with RPE?
I'll still use it 100%, but it's more like I'll use it in conjunction with other stuff. So like more give a range, give a bit of a description, and give an RPE. Kind of melding of all of those things, and then kind of see where they land.
Then go off that, just from there.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's all useful. It's all useful in its own way. I don't think you have to have as Zach said, exact definition of like, here is the thing, and if you don't follow it at like perfectly, you're going to fail miserably. I think like as long as you're in a relative like ballpark of what I want the set to look like and it's getting what I want out of it, who cares?
Yeah,
and that's kind of the underlying concept that matters. We're just using these as tools to set some form of a load prescription that isn't too heavy and isn't too light. And realistically, whatever the fuck a 7 ends up being, as long as it's not so easy it's not stimulating, or it's not so hard that the person is close to death, it's probably going to do its intended task, or achieve its intended goal, rather.
Yeah, and you could you could go far. Your definition of RPE could be, because obviously it's proximity to failure that you're measuring, that we're talking about. Could be as simple as like when you first start in the gym, could be just like, is this set easy, medium, or hard? You know what I mean? But then when you get to a more advanced level and you're using heavy and heavier weights, that scale's kind of a little bit too
broad.
a little bit too broad, because like if I say easy, maybe it's not. Maybe like Zach said, maybe easy. If I'm a 300 kilo squatter, is like 70 kilos to me. That's pretty fucking easy. You know what I mean? But then it's not really stimulating, so it's not what I want as the coach when I say easy. You know what I mean?
It's hard when you're throwing words into the mix, because now you've got interpretation and perceptions, and obviously it depends who you're talking to. Where it seems, and in my eyes, that a number or a numerical value just helps narrow that field a little bit more accurately. Yeah,
that's why I said, like, for me these days, especially with heavy top ends stuff, using a bit of a descriptor, using a range based off previous training that they've hit, and using an RPE to give a guideline. Using all those things will likely land them where I want, based on like their personality and what they respond to and what they understand. It's going to be much harder to fuck up if we give them like those multiple boundaries to get where they want.
Oh, you have as well, to expand a bit upon the His Majesty Rip went through how there's technical breakdown and therefore it's useless. You kind of have to figure out what you're basing the RPE off. If you're saying, cool, I'm correlating my RPE to how well this position held, then that's going to be different to I'm correlating to either bar speed or general look of the lift or how much it fucked you up. Because I can certainly do a squat that's technically much better, but really hard. But if I, turn on the Spinomatic and put the jets on, that same weight's now an RPE 0. Because you've moved into maybe a less ideal technical position, but you've created a shape that helps you shift the load better. And that's something that I think people need to kind of get a handle on within their own prescription. If you're expecting the RPE to be related to quality of how it looked, or just, hey, at what ease did bar go from A to B? Because that's something that I think people can get confused about.
Yeah. I guess that kind of technique bit that you just described, it kind of goes back to something that we talked about many podcasts about. We were kind of talking about like a technique bandwidth and like where you are within that, and like different weights, different loads, different proximity to failures are going to sometimes land your technique looking a little bit different. That's completely normal. It's completely like it's going to happen. Like it's at some point, whether you're pushing, but like as a coach, we can, and I've seen you talk about this recently, Zach, kind of see like, hey, this lifter's technique looks like this at this sort of load and at this sort of RPE, and kind of gather information over time as to like when a person breaks down and when it's gone too far and when it hasn't gone, when it's just normal to them. And then you can prescribe a load or an RPE or a combination of them to land them in the zone of what you deem acceptable as far as breakdown as well. Like it's not.
And even specifying that zone as well can be useful. Like you said, adding those descriptors, you could say, I want this to be an RPE 8 without your chest touching your knees. Like you can use them and you can build upon by adding more descriptors to kind of narrow down, for this set, this is what RPE is going to be related to. For the next set, when you're maxing out your squat, RPE 10 means I would like to see a hemorrhoid. Like there's differences between those applications.
Yeah, I do that with MRAPs a fair bit. Like if I give some MRAPs in it, I'll say, if I give MRAPs in it, I'll be like, I want this to be an MRAP of whatever, but when it feels like your technique is turned to complete shit, like when you feel like you're falling out of position, and the set there, like that's your rep.
There's obviously certain limitations that a coach is going to have or an athlete's going to have when it comes to finding that RPE 10 for a certain exercise. Like if it just turns to absolute shit and you're flogging the dead horse, like stop, it's already dead, let it go.
Yeah. It's not helping anymore.
Yeah, but then also you might have a few cues in there like, hey, you can get a little bit more swingy on these, try and bang out a few more. You can set, like you're saying, just further prescriptions and confines for that athlete to work in to get the result you're looking for.
Like I guess the main argument listening to all this would be like, maybe with all of these different things, it could be confusing. I guess one of the arguments against it would people would be like, oh, now it's just confusing. Now you've added in all these things and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Just give me a number. Which I guess is a valid argument. But it really isn't that hard. It really isn't. Like if you can't step back and think like after you set, like how hard was that? Was it like, you know, either whether it's on a 0 to 10 scale or did it suit the descriptor and did it fall within the range? Did my warm-ups feel a little bit crap? So should I maybe pull back the top a little bit, or do my warm-ups feel great? So maybe should I push it a little bit more? Like if you can't make these decisions, and by no means do you have to be like perfectly accurate with it. You're allowed to make mistakes. That's what training is about. But like if you can't think a little bit and go like, yeah, this is a fairly logical decision, then I don't know what we're doing here. Because I mean, like, if otherwise you're just rocking up to the gym and just going like, fuck it, like I'm going hard. Yeah. And I don't think anybody thinks that's a good idea. So like, just all we're asking is for people to think a little bit, whether they get it right, whether they don't. It really doesn't matter, because we as a coach can work with that as long as you're giving us something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like it's giving us something, but it's also giving the athlete just something else to work with. There's a bit of a, that's been the most useful thing for myself with programming from RPE, using it for the last 5 years, even with people of beginners, because it just gets them thinking a little bit more for themselves. Like you said, how hard was it? Like a lot of people find that question a little bit hard to answer. So if we put it in the form of some kind of numerical scale, it's a little bit easier to assign something to it. You've got some data, may not be the most accurate, but you can work off of that and you can manipulate it and you can teach them a little bit more over time on how to use that effectively.
Yeah, I just generally want to know, was it piss easy like a warm-up, or was it like fucking death? Like did you grind out the final one and you felt like it really fucked up the rest of your session because it was so hard, or was it somewhere between that? Like that's enough data for me to really make some useful training decisions going forward.
Especially because training is, look, it's a relatively simple thing that we're prescribing here. We're telling someone to pick up a heavy stick with circles on the end of it. We don't need, say, for every set, we don't need muscle activation, bar velocity, whatever things can you measure? I don't know, heart rate, intra-set. You just need a small snapshot to help guide decisions moving forward for both you with future plans and your client to not have to message you when they're slightly concerned about what weight to do next. It's just providing a useful amount of information to continue to make simple alterations as we keep moving forward.
Now I think just before we go further down this road, if we just circle back to because you said something in the earlier about how you're using RPE and you're using percentage or load and you're using like all these different measures to lump the overall like training dose or workload that somebody's doing over a week that's going to provide a stimulus that's going to allow them to move forward in training over a longer period of time, right? It's not about that one set. It's not about how hard it was. It's about the overall training effect that we were on from it. And these tools help us kind of mold that picture for somebody and give them the correct amount of stimulus so that their body will change and adapt. Now, with that, there is an argument that you hear quite often when it comes to RPE or proximity to failure that's along the lines of, and this is said in many different ways, but like I've broken PRs when I feel like shit, or I've had really shitty sessions when I feel great. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on that, Zach?
I think that it has a little bit of validity. Like I can understand if someone says, cool, RPE, it holds me back, man, because some days if I'm feeling good, I really just want to go in there and send it. And some days if I'm feeling bad, I can still hit some heavy things. Like I shouldn't have to pull it back just because I don't feel good because I'm a certified sick cunt. Like there's a little bit of validity there because people like working hard. But in the grand scheme of things, RPE as a generalized system, like you said, works better over a very extended period of time. You can build a low resolution picture of how you're feeling each day. Then you take all of those low resolution pictures to build a more high resolution picture as you continue moving forward. So my response to the answer of, okay, I've hit PRs when I feel like shit, it's like, cool, that's awesome. You can work hard. But that doesn't work every time. It doesn't work every single session. Like, sure, if you feel bad because your girlfriend just dumped you, but you don't feel fully recovered and your HRV is slightly lower, but you still want to work hard, RPE doesn't stop you from doing that. It's like people think that RPE is like a a god that sits upon you and smites you if you push harder than you should have for that day. Like, it's understanding, okay, if you push harder than you should have for that day, there might be a recovery or a fatigue consequence later on that has to be factored in later on. But just because you subscribe to an RPE-based program, and something that you said a lot, Will, is kind of like, you don't program. I'm not like an RPE coach or a percentage coach. Like, it's just because I put RPE in a program doesn't mean that you can't work hard if you don't feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're completely different fucking metrics, actually. You should be having an idea of load and RPE. They're very different. So that question always is interesting to me. It just shows me that you don't understand that they are different.
Yeah. Well, even like when you were saying about, like, you know, you've come into the gym, you're feeling a little bit shit, and, you know, maybe you're thinking you need to pull it back a little bit. But at the same time, like, just going through your sets with good intent and then kind of reviewing how you feel after each set as you build up in the weight, that's probably going to give you a better indicator as well. And sometimes you can surprise yourself. Like, you come in thinking, I can't fucking do anything today. It's going to be useless. And then all of a sudden you're at your top set with a couple more kilos on the bar and you can move it probably just fine. Maybe it moves up the RPE scale a point or two or something like that, but it's still manageable. And I think it's just, again, it's another tool. It's not the absolute, right?
Well, my thing that I was going to say quickly to jump into that, when I hear that from people, it's kind of like your ability to do things today, as in like where you're at, what your strength expression and all that, the numbers that you can hit today and the progression that you made up until this point is accumulation of the last months and months and months of training. Like, your body has adapted from the past months and many, many long periods of time to allow you to lift that amount of weight that you can today. So, and when I program in a set, say I'm given a 5x5,
it's a 5.
I'm programming that to give an overall stimulus to allow a person to continue to move forward, right?
Yep.
So I am purposely not making any of those sets ridiculously hard because I want the overall stimulus from the session, and even more so the overall stimulus from the week, to allow you to keep moving forward unless you're peaking for a comp.
Yep.
Now, if you just come in on a random session when you're programmed to 5x5 and hit a fucking RPE 10 top single, the accumulation of the past months might have you, if you follow the program, led you to be stronger and allow you to express it, even if it is a bit of an off day. You might be so much stronger now from the last months of training that, you can have a shitty day and come in and fucking blasted a single. But guess what? You just fucked the stimulus for the rest of the session and you actually held yourself back a little bit. So just because you can hit a PB today when you're feeling like shit, it doesn't mean that it's like the ideal situation of what we want to get out of the session right now, and really an indicator of anything other than what Zach said, that you can just be an idiot and try really hard today. Like, it's ideally you'd peak on comp day and get way bigger PBs, but hey, you know, everyone can be a hero. That's all right.
If you want to do it right now, no one's stopping you.
No,
that's fine. Go for it.
Now, Zach, I've probably completely lost your train of thought with that, but do you remember what you're going to say?
Oh, fuck, definitely not. Not at all.
We'll continue on.
Actually, hold up. Give me like half a second and half a ciggy. If somebody's coming in, they're saying, I still hit PRs even though I felt like shit. Then at some point during that session, you realized you didn't feel bad. Because if you put more weight on the bar, like, you're warming up. You're not just walking in feeling like shit and then hitting your top single cold. Like, you've done 60 and 100 and 140. And at some point you're like, wow, these feel good. Then at that point, do you still feel shit or do you now feel good?
Yeah, what you're saying is the RP isn't like how you feel isn't just a snapshot in time at the start of the session, and then that has to not change. Like, I feel like shit today. It's not like you wake up out of bed and go like, fuck, I feel like shit today. And then the rest of your day can't get better because of that. Yeah. You're allowed to sip on your coffee and then feel a little bit better, or eat some food and feel better, or whatever. Like, you're allowed to, how you feel can change.
Well, it's like maybe that you just came into the gym and you warmed up and you're like, oh, actually, you know what? I'm good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that happens.
That happens all the time.
Getting started is the hardest part. Eh?
Yeah.
It's like a little bit of a mental thing.
Throw on some bangers and fucking let's get going. Put on the Ziz playlist. Sorted.
You could have put on the Teen Angst playlist.
No, that's
the Josh special.
There's been enough of that going on.
Like, tonight will be the night that I will fall for you. Over again.
Now do it with the Rippetoe accent.
Because sets of 5 will be what I fall today. I don't fucking know. I mean, to carry this on, I think that, Will, you made a good point, kind of saying that what matters is that lump sum or that accumulation of load over the extended period. And I think that brings us to overload as a concept, because this is something that, I don't know, I've been looking at a lot recently, and something that I've been looking at, his name's Rob Gray, fucking 10 out of 10, smart dude, talking through and understanding that we're working on conditions, not positions. So when we're looking at overload and actually having someone progress, the act of progression isn't just adding 5 kilos to a pattern every single week for as long as you can, which is what Mark says sets of 5 are better for, because you can add more weight to a set of 5 than a set of 10 over the course of a month, and if you do that every single month, you're going to get stronger. No, it's how long can you produce a high amount of stimulus to that given condition for as long as you can. Because if somebody did, my client, her name's Emily, she's fucking doing the novice comp. Almost PR'd a bench, doing great. She did 60 kilo singles for like 5 weeks. I think she did like 4 to 6 singles at that same weight for 5 weeks straight, and her bench got dramatically better. What would have been better, her doing that, or her doing the first week at 50, the next week at 52, then 55, then 57, then 2 weeks at 60, when she was well and truly capable of doing all of them at 60? Like, the understanding that that point of overload is how much stimulus can you produce in this time frame, not how high can that number get over a continuum or a course of time.
Yeah. This is a hardish kind of thing to wrap your head around as a concept, I feel, as a lifter, because you want to see progression on a week-to-week basis. However, it is a massive revelation. Your mind will explode once you realize that you don't have to add weight every week. Like, the weight moving forward doesn't necessarily mean an increase in stimulus, because if you have more weight on the bar but it's harder, is it really more stimulus or what? Like, it's maybe one little piece of the stimulus is different, but there are multiple pieces that make up this stimulus, and your body adapts to that internally, not because you've forced it to with putting more weight on the bar. You can't. This is a saying that I hear, I say a lot to my clients, but you can't force progression. You can't just go in and go, I feel like crap and the bar's moving like crap, but I'm still going to chuck on 2.5 kilos on there or 5 kilos on there. And then I'm going to grind out that set, and then I'm going to call that progression, because it's not like the sets. I can do it's like I said before, I can do a heavier weight shitter.
Yeah.
It's not better.
Well, especially like what you said is that now, as a result maybe of that forced progression day, you've ruined your mode of accumulation over the course of that mesocycle, or you have to then account for that fatigue elsewhere, and then your ability to, accumulate all of, and just consolidate all of that work that you've done is now a bit stuffed. So, I say that to a lot of the guys going through the novice comp stuff as well at the moment, because they'll have that issue where it's like, hey, we're in the peaking block, we got to put numbers on the bar, and it's like, yeah, that's the goal, but it's also the goal to get the most on the day on the bar, not necessarily session to session. And if you came in and repeated a load, you did 200 last week, you're doing 200, that's still a fuckload of good work right there, especially if the RPE is maybe even a fraction lower, or even if it's the same, it's still great workload.
And that's the goal, accumulating good work, aka stimulus, to move you in the right direction. And guess what? If I might be giving you 3 sets and you're not putting more weight on the bar, you're being a good boy and sticking to your RPE and you're doing all the things right, and it might not be enough stimulus to move you forward. Right. And we might decide at the end of the block, you know what? Let's add a couple more sets. Or let's have, let's do that in that day or on a different day, or maybe we're going to manipulate the program, add some stimulus in elsewhere. But that's training. Like that, I'm actually being able to tinker with the program to keep you moving forward. Whereas if you just went, this ain't working, bro, fucking max out, it's actually fucked my data, and I actually have no idea what the fuck's going on, and I'm just guessing whether I have to give you more or less. So it's actually way better.
Something that I'll say all the time is I wouldn't give your body too much credit. Like, it's pretty fucking stupid. Like, it's, in some senses, it's an amazing thing. But look,
cool.
if you get an infection or you get something inside you that it doesn't want, it just turns up the temperature and hopes that thing dies before you do. Like, we're not dealing with like a fine-tuned system here. If you add 0.5 kilo of an extra heavy circle to that lift, like, it's kind of the same thing. Besides the fact that your brain's like, more weight equals good, me strong now. Like, that's all.
The mental side is definitely there. Yeah.
Which, it does matter. And it's important to note that. And look, if your client's scratching up the walls because they've hit 60 kilos for the 18th time that week and they want to hit 61, just let them do it. Like if it comes down to a matter of adherence and the psychological stuff, that's a different conversation entirely.
Sure.
But the accumulation of stimulus it's a fucking input one, output the other. Like it doesn't have to be this really fine-tuned RPE 7.64, then adding the weight of the collars, and then if you're wearing a different weighted and thickness shirt, now we have to account for that. No, it's just you lift something, create stimulus, gauge if progression occurred, if not, add more stimulus.
And to go back on that Emily scenario that you said, some people, I imagine, would be like, it's only because she's lifting 60, you know, if she was a really strong advanced lifter, that wouldn't work. But when I did my prep for America, the US comp that I did, and hit my best numbers ever, there was a period before I left, I remember, where I benched 200 kilos for a top set of 3 for, I don't even know, it would have been at least a month. It was definitely pissing me off. I was like, motherfucker, I want to go to 205, but it's definitely going to be above the 8. And I was being a good boy because I didn't want to ruin it, because I was ahead. I was doing well. You don't want to fuck with shit that's working. So I was sticking to it. And yeah, I benched 200, and it kind of mentally ticked me off a little bit, but I still pushed through it. And I ended up benching. I was by far my strongest at prep in bench and overall. Like it worked. So like,
what did you come out with? What was the bench?
220 at comp for that one. So yeah.
It's more than I deadlift.
That's not the metric we're chasing.
Jesus. Okay, new metric added. Alex's self-worth.
Yeah.
1 to 10. What's the scale?
Hey, it's a big part of the conversation, but
give that one a 0 to 10. Now, we've got a couple other points here that we've already kind of managed to tick off here. But one I really want to jump down is, like, if it's implemented poorly, it's all bad. And this is a big one that I say to people usually when I'm talking about like undershooters and overshooters, because people will say like, I've got this guy, RPE doesn't work for him because he just overshoots. And I'm like, hey, I've got this guy, I give him a percentage, and guess what? He goes fucking heavier. Like, idiots are idiots. Like they're not going to follow the program, and whether it's you giving them an RPE prescription or giving them a percentage,
right,
they're still going to do what they're going to do. Your best way to deal with it is to do what I said before and give multiple. So give a load range, and to give an RPE, maybe give a descriptor, maybe fucking give them a green light, red light system. I don't know, whatever you want to do to guide them in the direction of doing the right thing is going to be helpful. But I can tell you right now that there is no way to stop people going off program, because it just is what it fucking is. It just, I don't know. That's life.
We touched on this before, I think before we started the podcast, but also that if you have someone who is serially undershooting or overshooting consistently with RPE, at least you have something of a consistent metric. Like if you know that they're constantly undershooting RPE, well then program them some higher RPE more consistently, and you'll probably get a little bit more of the result you're looking for, right? Have you found that experience? And it's like, if you've got someone who's consistently overshooting, you find a way to kind of limit and cap them and still get them to work hard, but in maybe a more confined prescription or something that they can't fully fuck themselves on. But at least you've got a consistent metric. If you have someone where RPE is now this and that, maybe you need something else to help them guide and bring it a little bit more into the middle. Maybe it is percentage, maybe it's a weight range, maybe it's rep range, whatever it is that helps.
And usually it's just a bit of education as well, because they're just, like we've talked about before, like a lot of people just don't understand overload and progression and how it all works, and how it is accumulation of like the overall big picture, not just that one set and stuff like that. I often find that once people click with that, and they're like, oh, okay, and then they start like hitting what they should, because they understand they don't need to force progression because of all those other factors that we talked about. So yeah, it's easy to blame people or whatever. It's easy to blame the system but it's multifactorial here. Zach, do you have any input?
Nothing extra on that, outside of just, everything that most people will say is wrong with it just comes down to poor uses of the system. Like, you can't blame the tool, you blame the person using the tool. Like, I will admit I've used RPE very poorly in the past. Yeah, like, you just say, hey mate, do this as an RPE 8, then you log off and the person's like, it's 4 sets, which one's the fucking 8? Understanding that if you can answer the questions before they come up, give a very clear description of things, it's going to work. Anything will work. Like, it's lifting weights. It's a very simple, clear task, and you're just trying to guide that person to lift the appropriate weight for the appropriate goal at the appropriate time. And if you can boil it down to that and give them very simple, clear guidelines, it's going to work. But if you don't give them either the education, the background information, or a good enough explanation, you can't expect it to work. It's like getting an IKEA flat pack in a different language. It's like, I'm not fucking building that cabinet. I don't speak German.
We all give it a go. put,
Yeah.
the doors in the wrong way and put the screws in the wrong holes.
Yeah, get a 6-pack, set it up at the same time.
Yeah.
6-pack of what?
Just wing it. Just like you just wing your training.
It can work. You'll have some sort of a cabinet, but it might not work really well.
It's gonna
It's kind of straight.
be a bit clunky.
It'll still work though.
The last part here that we wanted to do is, if you don't like RPE, you don't like RIR, you don't like all of these systems that, I don't know, for some reason you have something against, then I see that you have created a potential solution to that. Yeah. This is a patent pending.
Oh dear.
Nexus system. But
Don't put it in my program.
So it's actually called the HHWI scale, and it's the how hard was it scale, where you tell me how difficult you think it was with either words or numbers. You can maybe like different barks, like 3 barks is really hard, 1 bark is moderate.
different shades of green.
Yeah, you can just color in. There's like a color as you go book where you can just color this exercise was red with amber tint. Like whatever you want. Just give me some indication of how difficult it was, and that's probably enough information to build out the next week.
Yeah. So patent pending on that one. How hard was it? Yeah, we might create our own scale.
I think we go back to from Luke and make the cuck to fuck scale. Like how hard was this? Bruh, I fucked it. It was good. Actually, no, it should be bad. Like if you cucked the lift.
That's a bad
What's
the bad one.
What's a mid-range lift? Like what's, it's not fucked, but it's not cucked either.
Oh.
It's not cucked or fucked. It's in the middle.
Zach's brain
So this is where it almost feels like we should just use numbers and that would be a better system. But I mean,
it's
that doesn't work. That's fucking bullshit.
Semi-flaccid. Semi-flaccid. Fuck, it's halfway. Like it's like shooting pool with a hose. Scale. You can still do it. Yeah, how's the stiffness
scale? Perfect. Yeah, it was about here. Yeah.
God damn.
Did it reach your belly button? Nah.
Yeah, but so Nexus clients, I guess.
To the right a bit.
Watch out for this one of your programs.
Ring. Banana phone. That curved.
Jeez.
Okay, I reckon we cut that there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I really that's some really valuable info with some tangents there. I love it.
Yep. The novice comp that we didn't announce at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because we were thinking about the timeline. We're just going to say it's in 2 weeks. It's less than 2 weeks, and this podcast will probably come out after the novice comp. So, thanks for coming down.
Back to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone, from what I understand, everybody smashed PBs and
everyone had a great time.
Bong pulled 300 somehow.
Somehow squatted 300 as well.
Emily definitely bent way more than 60. She smashed it.
Yeah. It was a great day. May 27th. Please come down. It's going to be an excellent time. We have 36 athletes competing for a novice comp. It's our first one here at Nexus Gym on the Gold Coast. First of many. It'll be annual. Make sure you come down and support your local lifters. And
if you're late and you missed it somehow, because this episode is you've been late to get into it.
Yeah, we'll see you at the next one.
Yeah, see you at the next one. We have Deadlift for Dogs coming up, which I'm actually wearing the shirt for.
Yes.
Which I didn't plan on, but I'm wearing the new Deadlift for Dogs shirt. And that one is 3-4 months.
August 19th here at Nexus Gym as well. Deadlift only competition.
Plenty of time to max out.
Plenty of time to max out and fuck up your program. So we got...
Definitely don't do your 5x5s, just max out.
Don't do the 5x5. Yeah, and then we've got Fab. We got Animal Welfare League Queensland. We're raising money for them. We're hoping for 10K this time around for our second Deadlift for Dogs. So
yeah,
if you missed the novice comp, come down to Deadlift for Dogs.
Yeah, it'll be a good day. Double the lifters this year. So
60 we're going for. 60 people.
Lots of lifters.
Lots of deadlifting.
You doing it? No, you're not doing it. You run it.
Yeah, we'll probably figure it out from a running perspective this year, then try and do it all at once again.
Might be a bit hectic. That's all right. All right, cool. Deadlift for Dogs, get in. And we'll leave it there.
Red hot. Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast. plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.